Hello, my kako. My name is Kimo Kaleohano. I am Kanaka Maoli, and this is my testimony with regard to the questions posed by the Secretary of the Interior. Number one, should the Secretary propose an administrative rule that would facilitate the reestablishment of a government-to-government relationship with the Native Hawaiian community? No, the Secretary should not. That would simply be another agency of the United States federal government participating in and furthering the prolonged and illegal occupation of the Hawaiian Kingdom by the United States. Should the Secretary assist the Native Hawaiian community in reorganizing its government, with which the United States could reestablish a government-to-government relationship? No, the Secretary should not. We already have a process. We already have a process for government laid out by the Hawaiian Kingdom Constitution. Should the Secretary instead rely on the reorganization of a Native Hawaiian government through a process established by the Native Hawaiian community and facilitated by the state of Hawaii to an extent such a process is consistent with federal law? Yes, the Secretary should rely on the Native Hawaiian community to facilitate our own reorganization. However, that should not have anything to do with the state of Hawaii, and it should not be constrained by federal law. If so, what conditions should the Secretary establish as prerequisites to federal acknowledgement of a government-to-government relationship? It's my understanding that issues regarding government-to-government relations between the Hawaiian Kingdom and the United States is a responsibility of your State Department. Finally, with regard to the question of tribal status, we love, honor, and respect our Native brothers and sisters. That being said, we are not now, nor have we ever been, a Native tribe. We are Hawaiian descendants, original inhabitants of the Hawaiian Islands. We are the citizens, both Kanaka Maoli and non-Kanaka Maoli, of the internationally recognized sovereign Hawaiian Kingdom. I just want to finish with the words of James Kaulia. Protest forever. Forever. Protest forever. The annexation of Hawaii until the last patriot lives.
Okay, I've got Lulani and Nico Martin. I'm blind.
Aloha, Secretary. As the Queen who filed her official protest in the State Department in 1897, she said no. We say no. And that also gives a direction. It's an unanswered letter from her. We'd like to sing a song in our tradition. We have songs in Mele, Laulani. Red ribbons dangling from her hair. Red ribbons, I see them everywhere. Red ribbons, won't you take me there? From the fire, she told her people standing down would mean their survival. Climbing down from her throne, aloha oi to the choir, took a train across America to lay our story down. And for the people of America, she prayed that they would find inspiration and heart's compassion for the peace of all mankind. The curse that's held us under. message that she gave. And one day they will rise again, sons and daughters of Hawai'i, and there'll be red ribbons everywhere. She wanted safety for her people, shelter from the storm. She wanted to protect the land from the hand of a greedy horde. And through the snow and icy embers, up the stairs to see if justice lived there, for those red ribbons everywhere. So red ribbons dangling from her hair. Red ribbons, I see them everywhere. Red ribbons, won't you take me there? Red ribbons everywhere. Through the snow and icy embers, up the stairs to see if justice lives there, for those red ribbons that she wore. What else you want to see?
You work in lunch.
Start again. How's it going now? Oh, oh, tell me, what have I done wrong? Why can't we get along? Is it because the loss of love? What is the cause? Oh, tell me, why won't they leave us alone? Is it the shame of what's been done? Why do they do it? They can't refuse it. They're under the gun. You can run, but you can't hide behind the pillars of genocide. You can lock me in the prison walls, kick me out into the streets and halls. Whatever happened to the sacred trust? Did they forget about us and our aspirations for self-determination lie in the dust?
Berlin Wall. You can run, but you can't hide behind the pillars of genocide. You can lock me in the prison walls, kick me out into the streets and halls. Whatever happened to the sacred trust? Did they forget about us and our aspirations for self-determination lie in the dust? Our aspirations for self-determination lie in the dust. Okay then. Hello, girl.
Okay, so we are live streaming from the BLNR, the Board of Land and Natural Resources, which my daughter says is spelled B-O-R-E-D of Land and Natural Resources, because they appear to be bored of having such a thing as land and natural resources. So we are outside a hearing for an application for a sublease on the summit of Mauna Kea for a 30-meter telescope. That's 30 meters of just the internal lens of this telescope. So this is a stadium-sized building, stadium-sized footprint and building, that it would be 18 stories high. So that's taller than this building, it's taller than that building, it's taller than any of the buildings right around here. And we are in downtown Honolulu right now. This is on top of the most sacred mountain in the Pacific. And that's saying a lot because there are many very sacred mountains in the Pacific. So right now, we are going into this hearing, which is appearing behind us. One interesting thing, a couple of interesting things that if they should choose to approve this sublease, number one, the University of Hawaii does not have a lease for that time period for the telescopes. So for the summit of the mountain. So it has no business issuing the permit for something that it doesn't have. Secondly, it has not done Section 106, which is a requirement of historic preservation. So we'll see. If they pass this, it is clearly breaking the law. And we will see whether they follow the law or whether they break the law right now. Mahalo.
On August 15, 2011, Gary Sanders, the TMT project manager, stated that the construction of the TMT would take 7 years. First starlight on the mirror would occur after that period. The first scientific results would be expected another year later or thereafter. Sanders' timeline, of course, was premised on an expectation that UH's environmental review of general sublease impacts can be mitigated in ways that do not affect the UH-TMT sublease. If TMT construction began in 2014 without waiting for the UH to complete its environmental review, the TMT could be operational in 2022. Sanders also opined that 5 years would be a reasonable timeframe for decommissioning. According to the TMT project manager's estimates, the TMT could be operational only for the period between 2022 and 2028, at which time decommissioning would have to begin. Okay, the numbers do not add up. Neither UH nor this board can guarantee 50 years of TMT observatory life without first addressing the general lease and the cultural and environmental impacts it entails, and verifying that UH will be the sublessee on the general lease in any case. From the moment of breaking ground to the final restoration of Mauna Kea's sacred grounds, the TMT would need a life of at least 30 years. The land board should also consider that the Federal Advisory Council on Historic Preservation believes that the TMT project and its funders and partners need to comply with NHPA consultation requirements. Many of the petitioner appellants in Mauna Kea and Idaho versus Board of Land and Natural Resources would qualify to participate in consultations pursuant to Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. FAIA plans to request to be an additional consulting party in future consultations on impacts of the TMT project. NHPA consultation requirements were triggered by the TMT project's receipt of federal funding from the National Science Foundation. So, we want the board not to safeguard Mauna Kea and its resources, and to not consent to the UHTMT sublease. So that is Kahea's testimony, but I also wanted to say that as an individual board member and as a person who teaches the mo'a level of Hawaii, it was very disturbing to hear Mauna Kea referred to as a raw and vacant piece of earth. And in my classes that I teach on mapping and the literatures of Hawaii, we talk about settler colonial mapping of land in Hawaii. And we look at a 1901 territorial map, territorial survey map of Mauna Kea that lists the lands at the summit as a wasteland. And what these people who see Mauna Kea as a piece of real estate, describing it again, similarly as a wasteland. We think about the timing, 1901, after the overthrow, at a time when this land was being, they're trying to portray the land in such a way that it would pave the way for the observatories that would later come in 1968. And so it's very disturbing to hear that same characterization happening all over again within this kind of capitalist economy. And the definition of settler colonialism is a system in which settlers replaced indigenous peoples, their cultures, and their worldview on their land. And that is what the observatories are doing at Mauna Kea. Thank you very much.
Aloha. My name is Ponoki. Aloha. You guys, a lot of you are pretty familiar with me. You know I don't like to be here unless I have to. Yeah, it's my kuleana, yeah. I heard what Oha had to say, and again, I feel ashamed that a fake state program keeps on trying to brainwash people to believe that our land was actually ceded. There's no treaty of annexation, so that needs to be correct. And what you guys are doing is, again, genocide to the legally occupied sovereign kingdom nation. And you guys know that there is no treaty of annexation. Who are we fooling now, yeah? This pohaku that I wear is more valuable to me than all the gold in the world because of what it represents. This is my future. This is my right to live as a sovereign person, to be able to feed my family and take care of myself. I have children, and they're going to have future generations, and I can't see them sleeping in by a garbage can, picking through a garbage can, struggling for water on what you guys are doing and representing and destroying, yeah? Again, kuleana. Some of you have koko. You know what that's all about, yeah? You've been trained. You know, yeah? So I'm asking you, use your manao, yeah? Use your na'au to your kuleana. Activate your activism to the pono direction, yeah? Mahalo.
Okay, so I will move to approve the recommendation for the sublease. Concerning the contested case, that we consent to the sublease for contested case, including all the ones that were made today and the ones previous, assuming they all get in their 10-day written.
So stay until the administrative process is complete.
Right. With the question of the contested case. Does that make sense?
I believe it does. Do we have a second?
Somebody could say that better, but we're gonna just say it.
Okay. Do we have a second? Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Thank you very, very much.
Okay, here's the people. The people. I wasn't totally clear. So they passed the sublease, but but they are going to have a contested case, or they're
They
not?
said pending the outcome of the paperwork on the contested case.
Yeah. So what does that mean?
I don't know what that.
Yeah, it was very
That was very
unclear.
Yeah, that was.
Is that what's being decided?
Well, what was decided was that the land board approved TMT lease, stayed the decision until the administrative process, i.e. the contested case hearing process is done. And in the outcome, so the contested case process is standing is determined. Standing is determined, the process goes forward. That's the next analysis.
Since it's not going to be made today,
The decision was made, but the
no,
decision
but
was
it's
stayed.
staying until the other process is complete. So we have to wait until that's done, and that's not going to happen right now.
So there will be the whole contested case, the regular contested case process will
There
begin.
will be once the standing issue is determined.
Right, of course, yeah.
Then
as
the whole
usual.
contested case process will begin.
Okay, great.
All right.
Okay, so that's where we're at. We can do the contested case. Only the people who filed before.
Only people who are asked and followed up. So OHA at the last minute asked and followed up. So it would be OHA, it would be Kalani, it would be Kealoha, it would be the guy Dan, because he asked.
This meeting, you asked this meeting, okay.
But wait a minute, what about, because there were some who requested, I was one of those who requested at the last meeting.
So the analysis will go on for all of you folks, okay?
So,
The analysis, you'll be included in the analysis for standing that goes on.
okay, so, but we would then need to, if we filed back then,
would
we
say
would need
To be
10
safe on
days.
yourself, follow up within the 10 days, something is right, okay? And point out the fact that you asked for one at the last hearing, which was deferred, and that you're following up now with your 10-day request.
Okay.
Construction.
The construction is not an issue. The construction, the CDUP is already issued. It's not construction. What they're doing is they're doing a geotechnical. So that's not construction.
Instead of doing construction, send them pictures.
Just because those bulldozers, they're just a figment of your imagination.
That's what they say to me.
Well, it is. You did a core sampling to figure out what the footing is going to be and stuff like that. That's technically not construction. All right? It's clear?
Sort of, thank you.
The process is requests have come in. We'll wait the 10 days for other folks to come in with their written testimony. All of, not just the application. All of those verbal follow-up written requests now get sent to the Attorney General's office to make a determination on standing. Those that have standing now go into a process where they hire a hearings officer and they go through basically a judiciary hearing. The deposition of witnesses, the submittal of testimony, the cross-examination of witnesses. The decision was to approve the request, staff recommendation.
Can I ask for clarification? So you're saying that the sublease will go into effect until the administrative processes run. So does that mean the conclusion of the contested hearing? So not when it begins, but when it is completed?
Yes. They're like somebody will take
Right. And so how about when it's in appeal, is it considered that the administrative processes have run their course, or after the...
Once the determination is done, right, the decision is made by the hearing officer and confirmed by the board, and that's considered a decision. That decision stays in place until it's overturned by the board.
Or rejected by the board, or it can be rejected by the officer for interpretation.
Absolutely. Okay. You're absolutely.
Okay, we got some community action going. I think I'm going to cut my live stream.
Okay, I'll keep mine going.
Yeah. So check out H. Doug Matsuoka. Yeah, the Guerrilla Video Especial and H. Doug Matsuoka. Okay, and mahalo everybody who's tuned in and.
Mahalo Laulani for live streaming when I couldn't do it.